In a world where voices are silenced, one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide Podcast with Luke Boner. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, g'day and welcome to episode 101.
Yes.
It's a big effort considering we didn't think we'd get to 5.
Yeah, I would say so.
No, but we're very, very happy and we're glad that you're happy. And thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you so much to all of you for listening and giving us feedback and doing all that stuff. And if you have any suggestions on how we can improve, no, don't do that. If there are some people out there you'd like us to talk to, send us your list, your wish list, and we'll do our best to chase them down. We've got some interesting people to bring you today. More on that shortly.
Well, I actually forgot to note down who you're speaking to today.
We're doing the man cave.
Do you want me to? Of course, yeah. Tell us about the man cave.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the man cave. We have Bill Edgar, the coffin confessor, who is always fascinating. The vice captain, Adam McDonald, from Evans Hastings, the star of the TV show Aussie Pickers. And because Anzac Day is just around the corner, a special guest, somebody that rang me when I was with reasonably attractive Phil from 2GB on the Boner Report. He rang through because we were talking about Anzac Day. We were talking about the ongoing vandalism of war memorials. We're talking about the Katter Party wanting to make burning the Australian flag illegal. And the BRS, as it's now known, case, Ben Roberts-Smith, and how that's divided a lot of Australians, but it's really triggered a lot of returned soldiers, men and women, who some of them just feel vindicated and some feel absolutely masticated. And remember, this man is innocent till proven guilty.
Of course,
but a lot of people in the media have got him as guilty already. Look, we can't comment on innocence or guilt, but all I can say is those returned service men and women who feel as though fingers are being pointed at them as well, it's a shame.
Of course, but let's just remember that the whistleblowers in this case were also service men and women, and there is the other side of this, and that is you should feel safe to report whether or not it's true or false or whatever. There should be...
You should always report what's true.
Exactly.
And I 100%... and you weren't there, I wasn't there. I have no idea.
Of course.
But it's so grey as to what are the rules of combat. Well, they're written down, but when you're over there...
I know. I'm just saying
it's very difficult. And how does he find an untainted jury?
I know, but I just think there are two sides to this coin, and there are going to be servicemen and women who, you know, are feeling like fingers are being pointed, and then there are going to be servicemen and women who are feeling like they cannot speak their truth and they cannot blow whistles without everyone saying, how dare you? So either way, that's going to be on lots of people's minds.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be difficult. So,
and no matter what, I think this Anzac Day, everyone has to remember that this is about honouring servicemen and women, no matter what way they're leaning or what they think. You know, either way, this is about honouring those people.
Lest we forget.
Exactly.
Lest we forget. So more on that, a special Anzac Day episode 101 coming up a little bit later on. Hey, listen, you have been very busy. You've got merch.
I do have merch.
Okay, take us through it.
Oh, well, you'll see it throughout this episode.
Can people win it, or do they have to buy it, or both?
No, we're saying that we'll do the first merch giveaway. All you have to do is leave a voicemail responding to any one of the questions that Luke throws out there throughout this episode, because, you know, Luke is always asking questions. If you've got an opinion, you've got something to say, send us a voicemail and we'll choose the best one and send you some merch.
My thought of the day later.
Oh, God.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Who else is coming up?
I forget.
Ben Fordham.
Oh, Ben Fordham. Now, Ben Fordham is the breakfast presenter on radio station 2GB. He's the number one presenter in the market. I've known him for a long, long time. And I just thought it'd be a good idea because we had to go into 2GB the other day. I thought, why don't we sit down and have a bit of a chat with old Fordo about life, the universe and a few other things. Marriage, his career, and his very famous dad, the late John Fordham, who managed a lot of famous people, including John Lord.
We love the news. Something to think about, something to laugh about.
Do you remember a few weeks ago we went on a road trip to Canungra Valley? And it was in the week leading up to Easter. And people had cancelled at the Kangaroo Valley Golf Resort because of the petrol.
Yeah.
Well, people getting away for the Anzac Day weekend may have some fuel relief.
Yes, the NRMA has come out saying that fuel prices should be falling this weekend and there should be no excuse for excessive pricing over the long weekend.
Well, that's a relief while we have petrol. And let's hope the diesel keeps coming through.
Yeah.
Because Albo did his trip to Brunei, Malaysia and Thailand and has come back with a bit of fuel, some relief, nowhere near the 35 days we need and nowhere near the 90 days we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
I heard a funny line the other day. Was it Pauline Hanson? There's no way Anthony Albanese could have run a fish and chip shop.
I don't get it.
He'd run out of oil.
But the terminal gate price,
that was all right.
Yeah, that was all right. Yeah. The wholesale price for regular unleaded has fallen 67.5 cents since 26th of March to 181.5 cents per litre. Diesel wholesale prices, they've fallen 96 cents and that is 230.7 cents. If you are seeing a lot of price gouging going on this weekend, report it because it shouldn't be happening, and that's what the NRMA is also saying.
We need to talk to Peter Curry from the NRMA again and see what he thinks about the current crisis. It was interesting to read Matt Canavan coming out in the papers asking the question, is it too easy to become an Australian? And he went back through his Italian ancestry. He was in the High Court a few years ago. He was there as an alleged Italian.
Well, an alleged Italian, what does that mean?
Okay, well, he says, like many Italians, my nonno and nonna immigrated to Australia after the Second World War. The High Court found that I was a dinky-die Aussie, so I could continue my service as a senator for Queensland. But in the process, I learned a lot more about my grandparents, he said. And I paid to have access to hundreds of files on them held by the National Archives. And what shocked him about the documents he found was the lengths that migrants had to go through to become citizens back in the 1950s.
Yeah.
They needed references from their employers, people of stature in their community, letters from local police constables.
Oh, wow.
Evidence that they could provide for themselves, evidence they had secure lodgings. Their applications for citizenship was over 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
And he's asking the question, is it too easy to become an Australian citizen now?
It's an interesting question because I obviously don't know really anything about the hoops people have to jump through to gain citizenship.
Well, they look at your police record, obviously.
Yeah. There's a test. I know that. And I know that you get given a tree or something at the ceremony.
Yeah. Is the test enough? And should you be able to prove that you can speak English? Because the English is our language. It's great to be bilingual or trilingual. Trilingual? But should you be able to prove that you can speak English or are going to take an effort to learn it?
Yeah, I think you should have a basic understanding of English.
Yeah, you do at the moment have to prove that you have somewhere to live and you have to prove that you can earn a living. Or if you have a health issue, you cannot be a burden on the taxpayer and on our Medicare system. That's about it.
Right. Well, I'd be interested to hear from anyone that has maybe done the citizenship test or knows someone that's done the citizenship test and what they think about it. Because I actually don't know anyone. I mean, besides two of my friends, but they were like 6 or something when they gained citizenship. I've got no idea. I would love to hear someone's perspective on this. And if you do, you can get some merch.
Hey, do you remember me talking to Graham Wynn, our employment expert, ages ago now, about AI and was it going to take people's jobs? And there was a worldwide panic that AI was going to take hundreds of millions of jobs.
Yeah.
Now, what's the latest?
Well, I kind of think that the panic was manufactured by AI companies. Of course, they want people to think that you have to implement AI in your businesses, otherwise you're going to fail. Right? And I think it was a very strategic marketing move to actually call it AI, because I don't actually think it's all that intelligent. So this was out of Fortune. A study published in February by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that among 6,000 CEOs and other executives from firms who responded to various business outlook surveys in the US, UK, Germany, and Australia, the vast majority see little impact from AI on their operations. So while about 2/3 of executives reported using AI, that usage only amounted to about 1.5 hours per week. And nearly 90% of firms said AI has had no impact on employment or productivity over the past 3 years. And just remember,
a lot of musicians are concerned because of the AI jingles.
We're talking about businesses though, like you know, on the S&P 500. Just remember that when AI first came out, all of these AI companies were saying that it's going to increase productivity by 40%, right? They gave that benchmark 40%. It is nowhere near that. I think I saw it was like 1.5% or something. Obviously, this will change with time, and as the technology gets better, lots of people are getting laid off, saying, oh, AI is going to take this job. But in reality, businesses are learning that, oh shit, AI can't actually do this job. And the employees that are left over are just doing twice the amount of work.
God, I wish I had AI. I would have taken half the time to get that point across.
Hey.
Is AI expensive?
Oh, if you're in a big business, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it can be very expensive because now it's integrated in everything.
All right. I noticed that the Discovery tourist parks are under fire.
Yeah,
because of AI.
For an Arab border collie, we talk about that in the man cave.
We're going to talk more about that. But you know, Bruce the border collie.
Well, I do now.
Well, he's the AI. Did I bring this to your attention?
On the man cave.
Yeah, but you didn't hear about it before then.
No.
See, I brought something to the table.
Oh, about time.
Okay. Bruce the border collie is the AI sort of pixel dog that you see on the Discovery Park ads.
Yeah.
And he's very cute. Your dog who barks at dogs barks at it. That's how realistic it is.
Well, she barks at anything, though, so good judgment.
Apparently, the Discovery Park people, that's the G'day group, have had to put off 40 people recently. And they said it's got nothing to do with Bruce the border collie. But some people are saying that Bruce the border collie
took their job.
It's taking their job. How?
I don't know.
How?
I don't know.
What? So instead of using an actor in a dog costume in their television commercial,
well, it probably
that's one job gone. Someone in a dog suit. But how else are these jobs going because of Bruce the border collie?
I don't know, but I guess like a spokesperson for Discovery Park said, as a mascot used for advertising purposes, he has no capability to perform any work and is not replacing any roles within the business. But it could just be the border collie might just kind of be the figurehead for this, but maybe they have, you know, removed some jobs and replaced it with the AI software.
Move on. We got some listener mail. Jono, in response to our live stream, what was that, last Tuesday?
Remember when I was talking about, I never thought how orange juice, because we were talking about that MP saying that, oh, look at this freight train, that's another truck off the road. Yeah. And I think it was Jono, he called in and he said that he operates freight train or whatever.
Which run on diesel, by the way.
And he carts drinks and, you know, orange juice and stuff. And I was like, I had never thought about that. For some reason, I thought that like it came from surely somewhere in Perth, someone's making orange juice. Surely they just get the orange juice from there.
Do you think milk comes out of a carton or from a cow?
Anyway, he sent...
You know a bull is a male cow, don't you? Have we told you that yet?
I've learnt that now, thanks to Granny Sue.
Keep going.
But he sent a photo of all of it and he said, here's 34 pallets, 24 of them are energy drinks. The last 10 are pump water bottles. Just a bit of an idea of how things are moving around Australia. I don't know. This is so millennial and just like ignorant of me, but I just thought that like companies had like manufacturing plants kind of like scattered everywhere. I don't know. It's dumb. But I never thought of orange juice sitting on a truck before,
You
and
should
now I
look
do.
after orange juice, Kelsey. Do you know it doesn't grow on trees? What's this Simpsons thing I'm looking at?
Okay, so we had a listener, Michael. He's made a meme for us. So for everyone that's listening right now who can't see a screen, I'll paint a picture for you. So do you remember that classic scene from early Simpsons where Bart becomes a minor celebrity and all of his classmates, they kind of surround him at his desk waiting for him to say this iconic catchphrase? Do you remember that?
No, I never watched it.
Well, I'm sure our listeners do.
I'm a Family Guy person.
So Bart has become a minor celebrity. He's got a catchphrase and everyone in class is surrounding him waiting for him to say this catchphrase. A listener took that exact sequence and in the first panel, when all the kids are staring at, Bart, they say the line, Luke, and then we cut to the second panel. It's Bart sitting at his desk looking absolutely exhausted, dead on the inside. And instead of saying his usual catchphrase, he says, I have a naturally aspirated 6.3 litre V8. And of course, the final panel is just everyone laughing at him. So it's perfect, Luke. The listeners are onto you. They completely nailed how it feels every single time you manage to shoehorn your AMG into a conversation.
It's only because of the petrol crisis.
I know, but we need a bingo card for you.
Literally?
Yeah.
That's your word? Okay.
Literally, yeah, that is my word.
Literally, I'm going to have a little bell ding every time you say literally.
Well, anytime you mention an AMG.
Okay. Go and get,
You know what? When
you know those little bells that they have when you walk into a shop up to the counter?
Yeah.
If unattended, ring
Yeah,
bell,
of course.
like a motel. Let's get two.
Now I'll get you a shot collar.
Get two bells, and when you say literally, I'll go to the bell.
You know what one you've stopped saying recently? I don't tell you what to think. I give you something to think about. You used to say that all the time.
It's a slogan. It's like, look,
I know,
Lawsy,
but you used to say it
when
like,
you're on a good thing, stick to it. When you find a better thing, switch to it.
I know, but you would weave it
Valvoline,
into...
you know what I mean? It's a slogan.
I know. But...
This whole 101 episode podcast is built on that.
Yeah, true.
It's a mission
We have
statement.
T-shirts saying it now.
It's a mission statement.
And we have T-shirts that now say it.
Now, you've got a bug up your ass. What's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, look, I wanted to bring this to the table because, I'm nearly 30 years old, right, Luke? Mm-hmm. And I came across something
Literally.
the other day, literally, on TikTok. And when I first saw it, I thought it was AI. It's not. I have now learned as a 30-year-old for the first time today, well, the other day, that this animal exists. And I do think it's my spirit animal, Luke. It's called a maned wolf. Have you ever heard of a maned wolf? Let me show you this guy. So, Luke, look on here.
Yeah.
And if you do have a screen.
Oh, it looks like a hyena because it's smiling.
It does. Look at this guy.
That's related to the hyena.
But
That's a hyena.
Look how long he is, though. Look at his bloody legs. It's not a hyena. It kind of looks like a fox.
You see it smiling?
Look at it. Look at his face.
Yeah, it says hyena.
So it's the maned wolf, South America's tallest wild canid?
Canine.
No, it's canid. Known for its long legs, fiery coat, and the unmistakable smile. Native to the grasslands of Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, these solitary animals use their height to see above tall grasses while hunting. Now, somebody said to look up a maned wolf jumping. So let me do that.
Oh, God, this is fascinating.
But when I first saw this animal, Luke...
David Attenborough now.
When I first saw this animal, I fully thought it was AI because I was like, there's no way that this animal is actually...
Animal Discovery Channel, folks. Do not adjust your dial. It is the man... You are not listening to Animal World Discovery. It is the Bonafide podcast, literally.
We don't tell you what to think. We give you something to think about. Okay, let me just...
029128 9311.
I've got to show you this video of it jumping because it is...
Could you hurry up?
I'm getting there. I'm just trying to find a good one.
It's all about preparation.
Look at that thing.
Actually, it's like a horse.
Look at it.
With a hyena's head.
It looks like that animal of Harry Potter, who actually turns out to be Sirius Black. It looks like that. Like when it's all like
that looks
mysterious.
like a pony with a hyena head.
Yeah, it's bloody...
They reckon the platypus is weird. This is weirder. A maned wolf.
A maned wolf. I had never seen this animal before. And so I want to know, what is something you learned later on in life that surprised you? Like what did you learn for the first time?
You didn't know that a bull was a male cow.
Yeah, that's...
I can't believe you didn't know that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But
I'd never heard of a maned wolf. So there you go. I've learned something.
Oh, look at his face.
Kelsey.
He's so cute. Look at him. He's my spirit animal. I love it. I love it. Oh, my God. Oh, he's so cute.
This is episode 101. Welcome to it. The Bonafide Podcast with Kelsey going off, literally. Coming up, the Man Cave, Ben Fordham, Martin Shaw from Wounded Heroes on the eve of Anzac Day.
Well, with Anzac Day just about on us, it's a day where me, as an Australian, I like to reflect and thank God for those who made unbelievable sacrifices, were able to provide me and my children a country that is safe and free. And I don't believe that Anzac Day is a glorification of war. It's a day of solemn remembrance. But I've got a bad feeling that this Anzac Day is going to be even more divided because of the publicity surrounding the pending case of Ben Smith and the unprecedented attention that this case has been given, particularly by Channel 9. Now, this is a very political issue between 7 and 9 because, of course, when Ben Smith was suing for defamation, Kerry Stokes bankrolled it. And he lost that case. So now it's become a criminal case. When that will happen, God only knows. But I know that Anzac Day is a very triggering day for returned service men and women. It's probably going to be double triggering because of the publicity surrounding this very, very public case. But more importantly, it's very, very a serious matter that we stress that there is help for people who aren't coping after serving overseas. And my mate Martin Shaw is the president of Wounded Heroes, of which I'm proud to be an ambassador, and he joins me now. Martin, we've got a special guest joining us in a second, but Martin, g'day. Thanks for coming back on the Bonafide Podcast. Anzac Day can be a very, very triggering day, can't it?
Yes, mate, and thanks again for having us on and all your support. It means everything to us. Yeah, it is a triggering day. I guess there's 6 things that have happened in the last 4 or 5 months that have deeply affected the veteran community. And when I talk about veteran community, Luke, I'm also talking about the families, where you've got, without being political, we've had Bondi, all emanating from, the allowance by whatever government to put an ISIS flag on our bridge, which triggered everybody in the veteran community just prior to Christmas. And then, of course, we run into now the Middle East and the effect that's having on Wounded Heroes and the veteran community and widows, war widows and pensioned Vietnam veterans, etc. Then, of course, then you have the BRS issue going around, which has completely triggered the whole veteran community. It hasn't divided the veteran community, in my opinion. I am a civilian. Certainly there's division out there, possibly in the public. Again, not for us to comment guilt or innocence. Then you throw in, Easter, school holidays, and of course coming up to Anzac Day on Saturday. So I feel like the veteran community has been somewhat disrespected and not thought of in this whole saga. And I guess I'll finish off. I can come back to the effect on the Middle East and certainly possibly BRS. But I guess to say to you, Luke, that when we're thinking about Anzac Day, to your listeners, to yourself, and to anyone you and I are going to meet over the next 4 or 5 days, is that my feeling is for the families right now. My feelings right now, where my feelings have lent to, is that after announcing the arrest of BRS, the public arrest of him, my feeling turned towards the 90 families of SAS boys that were sent to the Middle East a week before. How must they be feeling? How must their children be feeling that they're over there, they're going to do their job, they're going to do their best job, no one around. But I may be being a little bit political here, but I just feel as if, the government sent them over. They're going to do a great job. We have the greatest defence force in the world, as you know. But how about the mums and the spouses over here that are just seeing that perhaps they're not as protected, they're putting ourselves in harm's way for Australia, or potentially, and then and this is where the possibility could end up. So on Anzac Day, my thoughts will be going to those 90 families along with the rest of the veteran community.
I totally get that.
And what they're faced with, a civilian who's never seen battle, has no idea. I mean, there might be set written rules, but when you're fighting an enemy that doesn't wear a uniform, and I was talking to a mate of mine who served in Vietnam. They faced the same thing with the Viet Cong, who a lot of them were women, children, all armed and ready to shoot you, and you didn't know who the enemy was, and you didn't quite know what the rules were. So I'm not going to get into guilt or innocence, but for those people who have laid their lives on the line, it must be just devastating. I don't know whether Australia's divided or whether most people are with BRS or not. Once again, all I can tell you is his very public arrest was very, very deliberately done by the DPP and the AFP, especially when he said, I'll hand myself in. If you want me, I'll come to a police station, hand myself in. But they deliberately filmed it, alerted the media of it, and arrested him in front of his family. And then Channel 9 replaying the damning 60-minute story they did after his arrest.
Yeah.
After his arrest, and he's been charged. How that isn't breaking our sub judice laws is well beyond me. But it's up to the BRS defence to argue all that. I don't know how the hell he's going to find an untainted jury. But let's talk about Wounded Heroes. You've introduced me to a bloke who's instrumental in helping with Wounded Heroes, and I thought we'd get him on the phone now. He is David McHenry, who is a retired major who saw action in East Timor and does a lot of work with you and your great people at Wounded Heroes. He's on the phone. G'day.
Good morning.
Major David McHenry, retired. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You've seen action overseas. You have served, and you've heard what Martin and I have had to say. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, well, I did 3 tours into East Timor. The first one with Interfet when Australia first went in there, and then 2 subsequent follow-up missions in there. The thing I say to people is that a lot of the veterans have seen humanity at its worst when we go into these countries. We see just how cruel people can be to each other. And as you said, you can't always tell who is good and who is bad. They don't wear uniforms like traditional standing armies. We are fighting terrorist organisations who blend extremely well with the community and indeed blend extremely well with our own allied countries. A classic example of that was the ANA soldier who murdered the 3 Australians inside their own FOB. He was a trusted person, but in the end it turned out that he was working for the Taliban. You know? So it really blurs the lines. There is no traditional front like there was in the European conflicts of World War I and II. It's now what we refer to as a 360-degree battle space. The enemy is everywhere and anyone.
What's the effect on you and to the best of your knowledge to other veterans?
We've seen a lot of veterans come in here with anger, with frustration, because a lot of them feel that everything they've done is being challenged. And you know, I've had veterans tell me that their family has sat there and said, you know, did you do anything overseas? And questioned their service. You know, we've got the media constantly pushing it up into so that everywhere we turn, there is currently images of conflict and images of the wars, and that it brings it back into the forefront of everyone's mind. A lot of veterans, because of what they've seen, try to forget and move past what they've seen and done. However, with what the current environment is, they're not allowed that luxury, constantly revisiting it.
I have spoken to quite a few Vietnam vets, and a number of them have said to me when they came back, some of them conscripts, some of them not, but you know the animosity and the hatred they faced back here in Australia was unbelievable. Having blood thrown on them, being called baby killers, it's just unbelievable, Martin.
It is unbelievable, mate. And I think it's when they talk about politics and everything else that's gone on, they keep forgetting about, I think there's 60,000 current serving members. They're going to have issues, has been publicly acknowledged around, Phil Thompson said last night, on a current affair that, you're going to have people leaving the Defence Force. Maybe that's all they wanted to be since they're 6 years old, a soldier, but they've got families, and they need to, they'll always want to protect them, etc. So, I just hope that, I don't think this is going to be an expeditious thing. I think it's going to take years. And, my concern is for the continuous, as Dave just said, the continuous triggering of veterans, and then having to, I guess what Dave was saying was having to, explain themselves when overseas. You, all your friends, I guarantee, Luke, out of Vietnam, probably haven't told you what's really happened to them, what really went on. Their deepest thoughts, they certainly wouldn't have told their family. So they have to then swallow that down and just relaunches it for everybody. So I think that at the end of the day, even seeing the conflict in the Middle East, we're badly affected by that, particularly around fuel, because, veterans, widows, they have to use their car to go to appointments. Otherwise, they're going to, with their health, they have to we want them to use their car to be social. We don't want the loneliness or the isolation. And that's what Dave and I are seeing, particularly up in Townsville at the moment, and here in Brisbane, the loneliness of veterans because they don't want to use their car. They're then staying at home, and that can just manifest all the demons coming right into Anzac Day. So it's almost the perfect storm. And I think that's why you tried to get me on, is to just make sure that the public's aware that if you've got a mate that's a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, or can you please just reach out to them and just say, hey, okay, want a coffee? A Wounded Heroes coffee, of course, but have a coffee. And of course, and put your arm around them, and exactly what you do every day of your life, Luke, is the same as what Dave and I do.
Yeah. Dave, can you just explain to me and my listeners, because you're at the coal front of this, tell me about some of the clients you meet and what their needs are and what they're going through. So
we've had a lot of clients that come in here. They're feeling lost. They're feeling separated from the community. They're fighting they are fighting their demons. A lot of them are struggling to understand in their own heads why they're feeling the way they are at the moment. When we sit down and talk about it, they've all seen something or watched something or heard something that has sent them back down that path. It doesn't take a lot. Sometimes it's a simple smell will send a veteran down a path, or a sound. But visual is a huge impact. And as I said before, everywhere they're going, they're seeing it. We actually had a friend of mine who I'd known for 25 years. Plus, he turned up at the centre the other day with his wife. And he came in and sat down, and I asked him how he was, and he said that he was actually talking about ending himself, about self-harm. So we quickly got hold of the different contacts that we know to wrap around him and give him assistance. So when it's becoming like that, you can see the toll it's having on the community.
Martin, just explain for newcomers what Wounded Heroes is all about. What's your mission statement and how people can help?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So, we're up to 19 years on the 16th of May. So our charity space is strictly in the first responders, basically. We provide immediate financial support to ADF members, veterans and families in financial crisis, homeless, risk of homelessness, and family domestic violence. So yesterday we had an FDV up in down in your way, Luke, whilst the spouse and two children have got support in a week's time. We then provided accommodation for the next week until next Tuesday, plus through some food in. So basically, if once we've identified the veteran, we'll operate within 10 minutes to 30 minutes of trying to get some food or fuel to them, or I might get a phone bill paid or a car repair. And that's our charity space. As you know, Luke, not government funded, always fundraising, creating awareness, but the fundraising this time of year is quite important. Just in fuel alone, this week we put out just under $7,800 in fuel vouchers.
They won't go far at the moment.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But, veterans and families are quite sensible like the rest of the community. I think we're all...
Make sure they take their roof racks off.
take their roof racks off. I must put that up on our socials, Luke. But yeah, that's basically what we do. We looked after 5,800 odd veterans and families last year and just under $600,000 in crisis funds. So the trajectory I've done for the next 5 years will take that up to $2 million. So we're on a fierce mission of trying to continue our sustainability around our Veterans Centre here in Brisbane with an op shop and cafe. And we just launched, as you know, up in Townsville. Dave's our Veterans Centre manager volunteer. He's an incapacitated veteran after 35 years and still battling DVA to get his claims through, but he's volunteering up there for us. And when we sat down and had that gentleman come in with his wife, and she was desperate to get some help for her husband, and Dave has known him a long time. As it turns out, Dave and I sat with him and his wife, and we managed to get him into. We got contacts with the Townsville Private. But the beauty of it was that not the beauty of it, but that afternoon, as soon as he got there, he actually had a heart attack, and his stuff survived. And we saw him last week. He's very much in the veteran space, so he's actually had to move away from that. But I said to Dave and to Kim, my wife, I said, "What happens if we weren't there, Dave? You know, what happens if we didn't have a door open where the veterans could come in?" We've had so many walk-ins that we've been able to assist, particularly in Townsville, since we opened up there. And I'm forever grateful to the good Lord or universe, whatever you might believe in, and to support like people like yourself, Luke, that understand that we struggle every day for fundraising, but we're meeting our mission. And, you know, our service delivery and people measurement of what we do, I measure it in minutes. You know, how quickly we can respond to stop or prevent or prevent veterans surrendering their lives. And our impact I measure in lives. You know, I measure it in lives.
Richard Marles announced yesterday that the NDIS is out of control and they're going to have to rein it in. And there has been a lot of rorting. However, are you concerned that as a result of that, precious funds that should be going to people like returned servicemen and women who are struggling mentally might suffer?
Absolutely. You know, I look at the waste of money, and they're just saying, "Oh, sorry, we didn't get it right. We didn't do our process right," and they get away with it. Yet you and I can't get $1 million a year to support a 24-hour crisis line. So it's going to come back and hit us. And as I said, that trajectory I worked on the other day is frightening, but it shows our impact there. But yeah, there's so much government waste in the community, in the government, left, right, and centre. You know, $38 million down the drain with disaster relief, $500 million. The government opened up a door for some crooks on the advocacy place, which they've admitted. And then you see things like the NDIS and how much money has been wasted. So, but you know what? We keep cracking on, and you know, it only takes a small group of people to make a difference.
Keep punching on. David McHenry, retired Major David McHenry, thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for what you're doing now. What's your last word to any of the vets listening to this on the eve of Anzac Day?
What I'd say to the veteran community is be proud of your service, be proud of what the country has achieved and the soldiers for this country have achieved, and remember that you're not alone. Remember that you know, the guys and girls around you who have been through those shared experiences will be there for you and have your back. And don't be too proud to ask for help. Well
said. woundedheroes.org. If you want the best coffee you'll ever taste, Coffee for Heroes, number 4, Coffee for Heroes. It's online, Google it. And Martin, I hope you're feeling better. You've been a bit crook, so hopefully you're on top of it.
I am always, but I think I had my first sick day in 15 years.
Well, you see? See?
I don't even know how to put a sick form in.
No. You take care of yourself. And David, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Luke.
They brighten my day, got that bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the Luke on a blues, but they're the kind that
Ben Fordham, welcome to Bonafide.
It's great to be on Bonafide.
But I'm in your territory. This is a home game for you, hey?
Although you're in my seat,
yeah,
and so I've deliberately shifted into the guest seat just so I feel like I'm the guest.
No.
Otherwise, I'll just talk the whole time.
It's a power shift. It's a power shift. Ben, there's so much I want to talk to you about, and I don't know if we're going to have time. But you're a fascinating character, and I was here at 2GB when you came here to do Drive.
Yep.
And I didn't know much. I knew about you as a journo, and you'd won a Walkley, and we could talk about that. But I remember our mutual good friend Glennie Wheeler, who I adore. I actually started Glenn on radio.
What, you gave him a start?
Yeah, and it was over at Liverpool Street and Sussex Street.
One of the great entertainers on Australian radio, Wheeler, and I'm seeing him in a couple of weeks for lunch.
Can you give him my love, please?
I will. I see him probably 2 or 3 times a year for a bit of a boys' lunch that we have with some of his mates from the Shire that I got invited to one day, and I've just said to them, look, just keep throwing me a bait whenever you're having them. He's such a great bloke. Terrible what happened to him. He was involved in a road accident that was not his fault, meant that he could never work again. Needs all this care, but he's still got that spark.
Well, he had a spark, and it was on an old-fashioned C90 cassette, and he put together this rubbish. But I heard something, and you know, remember Chris Smith?
Yes.
Well, Chris was at this point the program director, and he said, "Have a listen to this." And there was a few tapes. So I listened to this Glenn Wheeler, and I said, "He's got something." So we got him in to do a demo, and I panelled it. And we dummied up some calls from people in the building, and I put him on overnight because I was the APD.
Right.
And I sat with him that night. I panelled him his first night on air. And my God, it was a mess, but how much fun was it? And that was his first ever shift.
One of the greatest moments on radio that he was responsible for, Wheeler, was a night when a lady called into his Saturday night program, and she thought that it was a psychic show.
Right.
Because once upon a time there was a Saturday night Cosmic Connections or something like that with Sharina or something. So she called in and said, I'm wanting to get a reading. And he sensed, hang on, she thinks this is a psychic show.
Right.
And he ran with it.
Perfect.
And he just started, he said, look, have you thought about getting a car? Are you in the market for buying a car? She said, no, but my husband just bought a car. Oh, yeah. He goes, what colour is it? She says, it's blue. And then he just started this conversation about messages from the beyond, from the grave. And then he turned it into a segment every Saturday night where people would call in and get a psychic reading from a bloke who clearly had no idea what he was talking about. Very funny human being.
Oh, off the cuff, he was the best. And how good was he at emceeing? And when he and I did a lot of outside broadcasts together, and he was just the life of the
showman and a salesman, really good at looking after clients and getting to know people. De Bortley Wines, I can still hear him doing the live reads for that. The Sydney markets. So Wheeler, if you're listening, we love you, mate.
Can you give him my love?
I will.
So, but I heard Glenn was doing a Sunday afternoon show on 2UE, and you were a guest.
He gave me a start.
Well, I'd finished here at Piermont, and I'm driving home, and I listened to Glennie Boy,
right?
And you were on, and I thought, hang on, this bloke Ben Fordham, he might have a future in this.
Yeah, well,
in this
thank
game.
you.
I remember,
and that's interesting that you gave Wheeler a start. Wheeler then gave me a start because he called me one day. He interviewed me on his Sunday program on 2UE. Then he said, mate, that was really good. Can you come in next week and we'll do a segment together called the Sunday Forum? So I just kept on going in on a Sunday. He said, we're not going to pay you for it. I said, that's fine by me. But I get radio time, and that's what I really wanted.
Well, isn't that funny? Because I was listening to you as Glenn Wheeler's guest on 2UE on a Sunday afternoon.
And do you know what happened after that? Steve Price then heard me.
Yeah.
And Steve Price was doing mornings on 2UE. He said, I want you to come and do a weekly spot on the morning program on 2UE. So he kind of pinched me from Wheeler, which Wheeler said, mate, go and do it because it means you're not working on a Sunday when you're working 5 days during the week at a current affair already. So I did a spot with Steve Price. Then 2GB called and said, would you come and fill in for Chris Smith? And I told Steve Price. Steve Price said, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it.
The dark side.
And I went...
He kept referring to 2GB as the dark side.
And I... wisely ignored his advice and I went to 2GB. Of course,
was Breno here?
No, Breno wasn't here at that stage, but he later followed me to 2GB, Steve Price. So I thought, all right, he might have been giving me some dud advice because, he was of the view that I shouldn't go to 2GB even though he ended up going to 2GB.
Well, you've got to eat.
Well, that's right. And also, they had an audience, right? So I was saying to him, but hang on, 2GB's number one. So why would I knock back the opportunity to be on 2GB?
Well, Steve had some issues with the place back then, but as I said, you got to eat.
Well, do you know what he did? This is funny. This is a funny Steve Price story. When he then came to 2GB, and I was already here on Drive, he came here to do, I think, nights to begin with, but he didn't want to do nights. He wanted to do a daytime shift, or it might have been afternoons. He did afternoons at one stage and he did nights. Anyway, he decided, Pricey, that he wanted to do Drive.
Yeah.
And Russell Tate, who was the chairman at that stage, said, but we've got Ben doing Drive. Steve Price said to Russell Tate, mate, don't worry about him. Like, he's got another job. He's on TV, right? And I can do it better, right? So sack Fordham and put me on Drive. Yeah. Russell Tate refused, and he told me about it, Russell Tate. So I thought Pricey and I were mates. So I said to him, I said, mate, apparently you told Russell Tate...
Why'd you want to spear me?
To spear me. To Pricey's credit, he admitted it.
Yeah.
Where most people in this business would deny it, he went, yeah, I said that. I said, why? And he goes, because, mate, he goes, you're on fire. You've got a TV gig and everything else. I need this job. And I said, but, mate, they're offering you a job, just not the shift you want. So, yeah, no, Pricey and I haven't had much to say to each other in the years since. I tried to reach out to him after he got the punt from 2GB, and he didn't pick up my call. And then...
Well, a lot of it goes over his head.
Every 6 months or so, he writes one of those columns in the Herald Sun where he says, talk radio's dead, or there are no decent people on radio anymore. I think that's because he's not on radio anymore.
He's a little bit bitter. I hope he doesn't get as bad as Mike Carlton, but let's hope not, because he's talking bitter. So you've just led me into two other areas I wanted to go into, and my producer, the millennial Kelsey, who's meeting with Luke Davis now.
Yep. Hi, Kelsey.
Yeah. She said, I want you to ask Ben. She said, with my peers, and she said, I think with most people see TV as a tier way above radio. Why did you leave? Ask Ben, why did he leave telly to go on the radio? Because she's talking to me about
two
this
reasons.
In the car, but she said he has really carved out a niche for himself on 2GB, and on telly he had Carl and he had everyone else, Sylvia, and he did the sport. But she said, I think it was the best thing he ever did. But a lot of people would think that's a step down. She said, Ben, it wasn't.
Interesting question from Kelsey. And what happened, I did 4 years of Today Show in the morning and 2GB Drive in the afternoon. So 4 years of that, it was full on. And then Jodie, my wife, was saying to me, are we going to think about a family? And she said, you don't look like you've got time at the moment. And I said, no, I'm going to drop one of the gigs because, of course, Jodie was my first priority. She said, which gig? And I'm sitting at a cafe with her, having not even thought about it until then, and I said, I'll get rid of TV. Now, the reason for that is because on radio, you don't have a whole bunch of people telling you what to do. On TV, you do. And look, I don't mind taking instructions, but if I'm given a choice between deciding myself what's on the show or having someone else decide for me, I would prefer to make the choice. 100%. And the other reason was, too, is because I thought there was a stronger financial future for me on radio, because there are some very high profile, highly paid people on radio, and if you make it to the top of the pops, I'm talking about, the Alan Joneses and John Lawses and Ray Hadleys and Kyle Sandilands and Jackie O's and whatever. Not that I'm suggesting I earn that kind of money, but I thought there was great potential there to earn money, and money makes the world go round.
Well, it is a good question from Kelsey. She's pretty observant. And you had Ninja Warrior, which was a fun thing, but I reckon the hours would have killed you. That went way into the early hours of the morning, didn't it?
Well, at one stage I was filming Australian Ninja Warrior from 7 p.m. until 4 a.m. And then coming here to do the breakfast show.
And then you got every second charity wanting you to host something.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no, but you've got to.
Yeah, I've had to pull back a little bit on that. What I say now is when someone says, can you host a charity gig? I say, if it's in the daytime and during the week, yes. In other words, if it's a charity lunch, I'm there. Yeah. If it's a charity dinner, I've got to be really mindful.
No, and it's really hard.
Well, otherwise you end up messing around with your own mental health. Yeah. And you end up being a pain in the ass for everyone to work with, on top of the normal level of me being a pain in the ass. And so you've got to think of those things.
When you're surrounded by people like Jodie, and that's another maybe for another chat, how the hell did you punch so far above your weight there? Holy Jesus.
I can tell you how I heard her voice on the radio.
Yeah.
And I called Greg Burns, one of the bosses at 2UE at the time, now at 2GB, and I said, mate, that Jodie Spears has got to be the best reporter going around at the moment. And what about her voice? And he said, have you seen her? And I said, no. And he said, wait till you see her. I said, what's that supposed to mean? And he just hung up. Months later, I was at his 40th birthday party.
Yeah.
And a girl walked into the pub.
And did you
I turned around. I turned around to someone. I said, who's that? And they said, that's Jodie Spears. And the rest is history, my friend.
But there's a lot more to it. And I love I love the fact there's a lot more to it. And I love the fact you said to her, Jodie, I want to marry you, but I've got to tell you, in our family, we stay married forever.
How do you remember that?
Because I've been doing this for a little while.
Okay,
man.
all right.
He's forgotten who he's talking to.
You listen. Most radio hosts just talk and they don't listen. So you're a good listener. You're right. I did say to Jodie, I popped the question. She said yes, and we celebrated that. And while we were having a glass of champagne and whatever, I just said, look, I just want to say something to you. When we get married in our family, we stay married.
Like penguins.
Yeah, I know that divorce is kind of standard these days, and that when pressure's on and whatever, people walk away. I'm letting you know that this is a deal for life. So I know that that's what it's supposed to be traditionally, but a lot of people don't treat it like that these days. And I just wanted her to know. I said, look, no matter what happens, I'm going nowhere. So, and I really don't want you to go anywhere either. So it would take... Oh, mate, it would take something pretty extreme.
Well, I'm 2-0.
What do you mean?
Marriages. Well, I'm 2-0. I'm 2 down. and
I shouldn't laugh. So, is there a third?
Well, she won't marry me. She said, "What's the point? We've been together 20 years."
How old were you when you got married the first time around?
20.
That's part of the problem.
1982.
And then the second one?
A little bit later. Can we move on? You mentioned, I want to get to your dad, but you mentioned this, so I've got to go sideways. You just mentioned Kyle and Jackie O, and I'm sick of hearing about it. But from a radio industry person like myself, it's fascinating to watch. And, families fight. This is a family that hopefully, it looks as though it might be beyond repair. But you also mentioned Steve Price. So I'm going sideways. Steve Price was very, very big in Melbourne. Darren Hinch was huge in Melbourne. Yep. Both of them not so big in Sydney. Sydney and Melbourne are like two different countries, very parochial. Lawsy, who owned Sydney, right, from when he was a disc jockey to when he retired. Sadly, I think he retired too late, but because I'm a massive Lawsy consumer. But Lawsy he knew Melbourne was never going to be for him.
He never tried Melbourne?
Nah, and he was tempted many times. Oh, Melbourne would love you. He knew it was never going to work. But so they're two different markets.
Well, and I've got to say, I didn't know whether Kyle and Jackie O would work in Melbourne. I had no idea, even though I know the history with the Steve Prices not working in Sydney and Darren Hinch not working in Sydney and people trying to move from Sydney to Melbourne and are not working. But Ray Hadley actually said to me, he goes, mate, never going to work. Never going to work. Never has, never will. There's just one of these kind of unwritten rules in radio that you can't go from one city to the other and make it work.
Possibly Brisbane, but never Sydney, Melbourne.
Yeah.
It never, no one's done it. And plenty of talented people have tried.
And look, they tried a very bizarre way of trying Melbourne because in most cases you'd say, righto, we need to go and fall in love with this new city. Kyle said from day one, I'm not going there. I'm not going to go and visit. I don't care about AFL. And then when he went on in Melbourne and it wasn't rating, he said, what's wrong with you people? And if you don't start listening, we'll pull the show from Melbourne. Well, in the end, they pulled the plug on him.
Well, yeah.
Are you on Team Kyle or Team Jackie O?
I got a photo on my man cave wall of you and me and Kyle at the Acras here at the convention centre, the three of us. And it was the first time I met Kyle. He's really charming.
Very charming.
He was really, really compelling and friendly. He knew who I was, so I was flattered.
Love that.
And then you guys bumped into each other, and there's a photo of the three of us, and I'll take a photo and send it to you. Maybe you won't remember.
No, I remember being there. I remember was on the red carpet, I think, or just outside on that media wall or something.
I think this was during an interval.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a photo of the three of us. And it was really great to see how...
You're avoiding the question. Are you on Team Kyle or Team Jackie O?
I'm not. I'm neither. I've got no skin in it.
Yeah.
But from a radio person, I'm watching it with interest.
Would it be
from a workplace relations, I bet you there's a lot of HR people watching.
Oh, yeah. Would it be hard to have a co-host? This is what I wonder as well. I think my job would be easier with a co-host because it's easier to have a conversation with someone else like we're having right now because it's like...
I'm available.
Well, that's good to know. You're always available. But also, when you have a co-host, you've got to deal with more of those fragilities, don't you? Of, Ben's not in a good mood today, or Luke doesn't want to talk about that, or, like that would not be easy. It's a lot easier doing it on your own.
Well, it depends on that. You can't buy chemistry. You can't say, okay, I'm a content director. I think this person, if there's no chemistry, it won't work. They had chemistry for over 20 years, though.
But you also get sick of each other, don't you? And that happens where someone's sitting alongside someone every morning, and don't forget, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever time they woke up, that adds pressure as well to your mental health, and you just get sick of it. And I remember listening one day about a year and a half ago where Kyle said to Jackie, "You're not listening to me anymore." And she said, "Yeah, you're probably right. Because I've heard it all before, Kyle."
At least you didn't say pardon.
Yeah, because he was talking about Donald Trump or something. She was like, "What, do you want another rant about Donald Trump? I've kind of heard it all before." I remember hearing a few of those things, thinking,
"Yeah, they stopped having fun."
It stopped being a bit fun. I remember another day Kyle was wanting to talk about sex, shock horror, and he asked Jackie a very personal question about whether she'd done something before. And she said, "I think I've given up enough of my personal life on this show, Kyle." And that was another moment where I heard it and went, ooh. See, I think Jackie grew as a human being.
Yeah.
She got interested in self-help, meditation, bit of yoga, bit of astrology, and good on her. She lost all the weight. She looks $1 million. I think she became a healthier version of herself. And I think Kyle probably struggled with that a little bit, seeing her develop while he was still stuck where he was.
It appeared that he was a one-trick pony, and the smut and the innuendo was his gig. And I'll give you an example. All my kids are about 30, right? And when they were 14, they thought it was fantastic. It was naughty. They've outgrown it. And you might think that strapping a young girl to a lie detector machine and asking about her sex life is out there. I thought that was appalling.
Yeah,
I thought it was really. I thought to me it was low rent.
Well, and you know what? It's about moderation. So my theory on it is this: if we're all sitting around and we're having a beer or having a coffee or having lunch, right? There's a dinner party. There might be 3 or 4 couples there, right? 4 blokes, 4 girls. And if someone had a sex story that they wanted to tell over lunch and they said, look, either this funny thing happened or what about this or their most embarrassing moment or whatever it might be, right? I think most people would, depending on what the story is, most people would laugh along. If that person wanted to tell a sex story every time we caught up,
where's Finn?
We'd think, this is creepy.
Yeah.
So when Kyle wanted to talk about sex all show, every show, and I don't know how old he is, but he's older than me, it's like, dude, you're just sounding creepy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not... you wouldn't walk up to a girl in the office and start talking about sex in 2026, right? I mean,
my kids have outgrown it.
Yeah, you kind of get to a point of going, oh, mate, that makes other people feel unsettled.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it on a radio show every day and you just want to talk about sex positions and sex stuff and whatever, it's like, mate, you're not 18 anymore.
Yeah, Jerry Springer only lasted so long, and then people got sick of that act.
Yeah, but even then...
you got to have more strings.
He was the ringmaster, though. Jerry was the one who was the ringmaster, and all the other freaks were coming on telling their stories, where with Kyle, he was the freak.
Yeah.
He was the one who wanted to talk about it all the time. And I'm no prude. I've got no issue with listening to some of that stuff and talking about some of that stuff. But that guy, if there was a guy who constantly wanted to talk about girls and sex and whatever, I think you reach a point of going, sorry, is he getting off on this?
We need to do a police check on this, mate.
Yeah, can we do a background check?
Background check? I just think that the one-trick pony type thing. I think
he'll be back though, and what I'd be doing if I was Kyle, I'd be going to America. I think he could be.
Yeah.
I think he could be a big star in the United States. He loves Donald Trump. They could promote him as the guy who was too hot for Australia. He'd be on the Joe Rogan podcast, and whooshka, he'd just take off.
The one thing that's always given me the shits, and it's given me the shits for a long, long time, is that when Kyle and Jackie O became number one on the FM band, the papers were full of Sydney's new radio king, and you were lapping him. And it's always, why are the ACRAs, they're sad that they've stopped, was there a best FM newsreader and a best AM newsreader? Hang on, we're all in the same game here.
Yeah.
It used to really annoy me, Ben, and I mean, you beat him how many surveys, and yet Kyle would have a survey win and beat Amanda and
Jonesy.
And all of a sudden, that's all the papers talked about.
Well, to be fair to Kyle, when we beat him, he sent me a text and congratulated me. Yeah. And so did Jackie. And he sent me several texts over the years when we beat him.
I'm not blaming them. But
no, I know. Yeah. Well, the other thing, I know what you mean. It can be frustrating when people don't report things the way you want, but I don't always report things the way that other people want to. So I've just had to grin and bear it.
I wanted to talk about your late dad, and I really wished I could have met him and had a chat like this with him, because God, he'd had some stories. Must have been amazing growing up surrounded by in his stratosphere and the people that he looked after, and most notably the great late John Laws. Was that amazing growing up and meeting all these people that your dad looked after?
Yeah, it was an education. Because I can remember, I think the first kind of famous people I met growing up would have been, I think Ian Chappell probably. Yeah. Ian Chappell, Chappelli was a great mate of my dad's, and it was the height of Australian cricket, and Chappelli being the superstar that he was, and I remember playing cricket in the backyard with Ian Chappell. And
shut up.
Yeah, others coming around as well, like Rod Marsh and people like that. And
have you got photos?
Yeah, got photos of us with the little pads on and everything, and and God love Mum and Dad for taking the shots, because we've still got them. But I think the thing that I really learned is that Mum and Dad's first office was in our house. Yeah. It was in our garage to begin with, and then in the main house. So we just got to hear a lot. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in bringing the kids into the office, get them to tag along with me, come and do something. And I'm in the car with Freddie just yesterday, my son. I picked him up from school yesterday. They do a thing now after school where they do homework after school. It's called review. So I picked him up from review. We're driving home. And so I'll just tell him about things that I think an 11-year-old is probably not that interested in. Even things to do with my investments and whatever. Jody and I are involved in an investment at the moment that we're trying to get off the ground. So I said, mate, that thing we're trying to do, I've got a bit of an update. Now, I recognise the fact that most 11-year-olds are probably not interested, but I just think that if you can introduce some of those topics and thoughts and whatever into a young mind, it's got to be a good thing, because I think that helped me. When I was growing up and I'd hear my dad negotiating on the phone, or a crisis would happen and all of a sudden all hell would break loose. And, in my early years growing up, Mum and Dad did public relations for airlines. I can remember occasionally there'd be an emergency involving an aeroplane and all of a sudden the phone would ring and they would have to respond, and watching that, it's impossible not to learn, even if you're just sitting on the couch taking it all in.
What an opportunity. My dad was a partner in an advertising agency when I was growing up, and I was surrounded by these incredible creative people. I did a couple of ads when I was a kid. I was the Roselands kid at one point.
Were you?
Yeah, black and white. But and so I was very lucky. And my mum managed and promoted the jazz musician Don Burrows.
Oh, right.
So we used to have Don and George Goller, and they would do connection concerts, and they would rehearse at our house because we had a wooden floorboard and a piano. So I had all these musicians, Stefan Grappelli and the list, and they'd come to our house to rehearse. And you know what? I was so young when it started. A lot of it was wasted on me, and now I look back and...
But it wasn't wasted, because you're still telling the story.
Yeah, I was very lucky.
You were still experiencing it. And I'm convinced that we are so much a product of our parents.
Yeah.
Like those who grow up and kind of think, and we all go through those stages of going, I want to be nothing like Mum, nothing like Dad. Newsflash, a massive chunk of you is going to be them.
Yeah.
I met a girl just yesterday called Mary Madigan. She works for news.com.au.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, she's been breaking a lot of the stories about Kyle and Jackie O.
Yeah.
So I met her yesterday, had a coffee with her yesterday. And she is a raconteur. She was telling these amazing stories, and I was like, she's 30 years old.
I've got to write this down. I'll get
Mary Madigan, I'm telling her. Anyway, so I'm listening to her, and I said, Mary, you are so funny and so interesting and so quick. Where does that come from? She said, well, I'm the daughter of a publican.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So she grew up above Dad's pub in Waterloo. I think it was the Gloucester.
Yeah.
And she said, I'd be up above the pub, but then Dad would bring us down at dinner time and whatever, and she goes, I'd speak to these old alcoholics.
Yes.
Right? And I'd play with corks under the pool table. So guess what? She is a phenomenal talent, can tell a story like no one else, really funny. And I'm like, well, that's come from that. You're the daughter of a publican.
She should be on the radio.
Well, that's what we're working on at the moment.
She should be on the radio.
In fact, I've got her coming up on the radio on my show. So off the back of that coffee yesterday, I booked in a spot with her where she's going to come on the show. So I'm always looking out for who the next talent's going to be. And Mary Madigan, I'm telling you, is one of them. Watch this space.
Have we got time? How are we going?
Yeah, we're okay.
We can edit.
No, we're okay.
Because I wanted to talk about your dad's relationship with John Laws. And I heard a great story from Ian Wallace. Now, Wally, does he still do traffic?
Wally, I think he does.
Okay.
Jeff certainly does.
Jeff does. Well, Ian Wallace used to be the station manager at 2UE. He was Gary O'Callaghan's panel operator. That's how far back Wally goes. So he's become station manager, and they're moving from Miller Street further up the highway. And this is the story. So John Fordham is representing John Laws, and Harriet Miller is looking after Alan. And the place is completely gutted. They're going to build the new place. Is it true that your dad had a tape measure measuring out Lawsy, how many square metres or square feet Lawsy's office, and Harriet Miller had a tape measure out measuring Alan's? That's the story. Is it something?
Well, look, I wasn't there. If Wally says it happened, Wally says it happened, I believe him.
But I might have got it.
I find it hard to believe. There was certainly a story at the time. I think John Laws might have had the bigger office.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been that someone from Alan's camp, maybe Harry M or whatever, might have been measuring up to work out, well, hang on a moment, why has he got the bigger office? You may remember that when you walked into Lawsy's office there at 2UE as well, there was a different carpet too. So there was a carpet throughout the whole building, but when you went into his, it was a much more luxurious kind of carpet. Even the coffee, you know, they'd have the beautiful tea set and the coffee,
silver tea set.
It was all that, you know.
And the handmaidens.
The handmaidens. They weren't allowed to wear pants.
They had to wear skirts.
Can you imagine saying that these days? Today. Sorry, you've got pants on. You've got to go home and get changed. So, you know, look, it was a real experience. I mean, the Lawsy connection was a game changer for my family, because when John Laws said to my dad, "Can you manage me?" Oh, mate, it just took my parents' business into a new galaxy, you know. And then some of those mega deals that Lawsy was doing, some of them later became subject to the Cash for Comedy inquiry.
Well, the Cash for Comedy changed the radio industry, whereby presenters were giving favourable comments to a product but getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
And it was the banks.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was called the other side.
The Australian Banking Association.
Yeah, that's right, because Lawsy was hammering the banks, and they said, well, hang on. And your dad, I think... He
didn't do that deal.
I see.
That deal was done by someone else, but Dad did other deals that kind of involved...
They ruined it for all of us.
Telecommunications, cars, Toyota, you know. And look, I got to know Lawsy really well in more recent years, and I saw him about 10 days before he passed away. And I really leaned into Lawsy after my dad died, because I thought to myself, there are several things. It's interesting, when your dad dies or your mum dies, you're conscious of the things that they probably would have been doing if they were still around. And I thought, Dad would have been checking in on Lawsy, so I better do that. And thankfully he embraced it as well and encouraged me to come along and have lunches and bring mates and then go back to the apartment and have a wild turkey. And so I saw him about 10 days before he died, and we were supposed to have lunch that day, and I said, mate, apparently you're no good for the lunch. So he was in bed at that stage, and he said, I should be okay. I should be okay. And I said, mate, they reckon you're no good. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're in bed, Lawsy. We're supposed to be out at lunch. I said, I'm going to go out and have one anyway. I'm going to have a drink on your behalf. And he said, have two. And that was the last thing I heard from Lawsy. But it's interesting. He was such a generous bloke, and he really liked younger people coming around him to have a drink and have a lunch and whatever. It kept him relevant.
Yes.
And he was good enough to me to pick up the odd bill when we went to lunch as well. So when he died and we put together a tribute, I'm in the studio at the moment with Riley Mullins, who's my audio producer on The Breakfast Show, and Riley put together, you know, an incredible...
I texted you that
catalogue
day.
you did of just sounds of John Laws' show, of the old jingles from John Williamson, the ads. There was even a song that Johnny Cash performed. You know, it was great to be... One of the great things about this job, and this might sound a bit dark, But when there's someone who's special to you who passes away, you're able to do a tribute to them that really gives the amount of credit that person deserves and really honours that person in a way that they richly warrant. And that's something that I do enjoy doing, even though it's a tough thing to do, to talk about someone you love passing away. It's great to be able to give them a real good send-off on air.
I've always been a huge... I started listening to Lawsy when he was on TUW when I was about 10. And I borrowed all his tricks.
Yeah.
When I got into talk radio.
Mad if you don't.
But I was sad that he took so long to retire. I wished he'd retired at the top of his form. I think if
he had have retired earlier, he would have died earlier.
I think you're right.
I think he kept doing radio to keep himself alive.
You need a reason to put your feet on the floor.
You know, I think that's why he did it. And with that in mind, don't you go retiring.
Well, I said I'm available. and you quite quickly said you're always available. There's a lot more I wanted to talk about. You got to go. And I know you have, because you said, listen, I've got to go at this time. And you haven't looked at your watch once, and I really appreciate it. I was expecting you to.
That's okay.
Can we do it again one day?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because there's more stuff to talk about. The future of commercial radio. The advertising pie is... the pie isn't any bigger. The slices are thinner. And you've got so many... Back in my day when I was growing up and Dad's advertising agency, you had TV, radio, the cinema, billboards, and magazines and newspapers. Yep. But now you look at all the other areas where people... my podcast, I'm looking for sponsors, you know. There's only so much revenue to go around. And I think talk radio is always going to be relevant. Now, all my kids used to listen to Today FM. They Spotify. They listen to their music when they're ready. And my son, who's 35, Jacob, massive podcaster. He's a tradie, and when he's up a ladder, he's got his headphones on, and he listens to Joe Rogan and all of those. Yeah. But he listens to what he wants when he wants it. Yeah. So live news, you can't pre-record live news. Thank God. You're right. You need to listen to immediacy. But what do you make?
Well,
of the
thankfully
future?
For us, there are news junkies out there who want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And look, I realised this when I was having some time off recently. There was one day when I woke up and I tuned in to James Willis, who does a great job filling in for me. And I tuned in for about 20 minutes. And then it occurred to me afterwards, because I don't want to be listening to a whole show because I'm on holidays. I listened for 20 minutes and I'd been kind of out of the loop a bit. And I realised afterwards when I was in the shower, I went, hang on, so I now know what's going on in the Middle East. I know what Trump said overnight. I know what Sir Keir Starmer's doing in the UK. I found out that incredible story out of China about robots. Heard the story about the bloke who won some race even though he wasn't supposed to win and he's some superstar of the future. Someone else in Victoria somewhere won $10 million on the lotto last night, even though it's the first time they bought a lotto ticket. And I realised, hang on a moment, it is a very effective medium for receiving information and getting a bit of a sense. And when people turn up somewhere with their mates, they want stuff to talk about. So when they walk in and they go, shit, did you hear what Donald Trump said to that reporter? And everyone goes, no. And they go, oh, mate, have a look at this. Or they dial it up, or it helps you, I think, to be able to communicate with people as opposed to turning up with your friends and saying, so what have you been up to? You know, it's called pub ammo. Bullets that you can fire when you're at the pub, and you say to people, wow, did you hear this? Did you see that? Do you know about this? Whether you're getting that from Joe Rogan or Luke Boner or Ben Fordham or whatever, people want to be informed. And I think talk radio is always going to have a presence. One of the main reasons is because it's free and traffic isn't getting any better. And if you're sitting in traffic somewhere getting to work and the radio's right there in front of you, I mean, that's a big advantage to us. But let's talk more about those things another time. I'd love to do it.
I love the immediacy of radio, and I'm so glad that your energy is still 100% and you're enjoying it.
I love it. And look, I can't do it forever. And I heard an interview with someone once who was a great broadcaster in America who read the nightly news. And when he finally signed off after many years, he was asked, how soon after did you start missing it? And he said about 1 minute.
Yeah.
So I'd be the same as that. If I'm not doing this job, I'd be missing it within 1 minute. But at the same time, I also enjoy other things, and I don't. I'm not going to be one of those people who is going to be chaining myself to the studio and the microphone for the rest of my life. Like when I've said to the bosses before, I said, hey, by the way, when my time's up, just tap me on the shoulder. It'll be a very short conversation, you know, because I've got other things I want to do as well.
Would you do a podcast?
Yeah, I'd do a podcast.
Like, would you go full time and do
Yeah, I'd do something like that. I'm tempted to do something outside of media. My wife is about to become a lawyer. And, you know, I look at that and go, wow, like that takes guts. That takes courage to say, look, it'd be a lot easier just continuing as a news
Is she going to specialise?
reporter or a newsreader, which is what she was. Because you know what you're doing. She's gone, nah, throw all that away and go and start a brand new career.
Is she going to specialise?
Hasn't decided yet.
Yeah.
She's 3 years
It's all
in.
there. It's like a doctor. You can specialise and do what an amazing life. Mate, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. And this is part one. Part two coming later this year. Or whenever another guest falls out.
After or before a long lunch.
Let's do that.
We'll go down to Otto.
Sit at Lawsy's table.
Lawsy took me to lunch with Jody.
Yeah.
And it was a Friday. It was sunny. It was packed, and it was echoey, and I couldn't hear him talk. His voice was soft, and I was even. When I sat down, the guy said, Mr. Laws, it will be along shortly. He said, don't sit there. He said, sit there. Because I sat in Lawsy's...
Oh, don't sit in Lawsy's chair.
Yeah, it's not just the table, it was his chair. But let's go down to Otto.
I'd love to have a lunch at Otto. Steak and some chips and a glass of wine.
I'll have
Sounds
a beer.
good to me.
I'll have a beer.
All right, let's do it.
And we'll have a chat. Good on you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be on the podcast.
Welcome to a show called The Man Cave. With owner on the mic, it's a good day. Good day. Adam McDonald and Kelsey too. Thomas behind the scenes, producing all the goods. Have a good time on a Friday. Or anytime you choose.
Well, it's a very special edition of The Man Cave today. We hope to, a little bit later in the program, have a bit of fun and a bit of a yarn to the Vice Captain, Adam McDonald, star of the TV show Aussie Pickers. And he is also in the business of buying and selling memorabilia and turning a profit. Hopefully, unders and overs, he calls it.
Well,
Vice Captain, g'day.
G'day. I went to a country clearance sale 2 weeks ago, and I got plenty of unders last night. So it's not all beer and Skittles at my end.
What are unders?
It's when I buy, I bought this Chinese bronze for, I think I paid $200 and I sold it for 110.
Oh, boo.
But you know, it's the game. It's not. You don't win it all the time.
No, but it's a bit like a casino. The house is always supposed to win, Adam.
Well, I mean, it goes through my auction house, so I'm getting the buyer's premium anyway, so it's irrelevant.
Very, very good. Bill Edgar, the Coffin Confessor, is back with us, brother. Welcome to a special Anzac Day edition of the Man Cave.
Oh, look, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and it's great to reach out to you guys and to listen to all the feedback from your audience. It's brilliant. Love it.
It is. It's great fun, isn't it? But on a really serious note, can I just start? Anzac Day is just about upon us. And Adam, I know you come from a military background, and Bill, I know you take Anzac Day very, very seriously. Anzac, to me, is the most revered day on our calendar. And this is just me. To me, it's more important than Christmas or Easter, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. To me, it is the most important day. I think it was back in about 2002, could have been 2003. Descendants of World War I vets were invited to march in Sydney. And I did exactly that with my Pops medals. My mother's father, his name was James Rupert Reed. And he joined the Australian Army, not as a romantic 16-year-old kid lying about his age. He was in his early to mid-20s. And he lived in San Francisco. Believe it or not, he was a window dresser. He was also a violinist. He played the organ. He was the resident organist at St Philip's Church in York Street in Sydney. He was a gentle artist. But he got very, very frustrated that the Americans weren't getting involved in World War I. You don't need a history lesson for me to tell you that the Americans got involved in 1917. Australia officially got involved in 1914, but Gallipoli, the 25th of April, is for most Australians where the spirit of Anzac started. James Rupert Reed had no idea what he was in for. He ended up in Villas Bretno on the front line in Europe. He went over as a private and he came back as an acting Lance Corporal. And the reason he came back an acting Lance Corporal is because they simply ran out of them. It's been a long, ongoing debate as to whether or not the burning of the Australian flag should be illegal, because today it's not. Well, the Qatar political group have said we've had enough of this, and a private member's bill is going through the Queensland Parliament and will go through the Federal Parliament and the Senate, and he's arguing that the burning of the Australian flag should be illegal, with a jail sentence of at least 6 months. But something else that disturbs me greatly is the fact that just in Victoria, since 2020, 18 cases of vandalism aimed at war memorials has taken place and not one person's been charged. How the hell does somebody think it's okay to vandalise a war memorial? It's beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me, and my pop would be rolling in his grave. Now, I talked about this on 2GB this morning with Phil O'Neill on the Boner Report, and we had wall-to-wall calls. Just went into meltdown. And one of the calls that came through was from a remarkable man called Ron. Ron made my day. In fact, he made my decade. His name is Ron Feld, and he served for Australia in World War II at New Britain, which is near New Guinea. Ron is so passionate. And guess what? He turns 100 a little bit later this year. So I thought, why don't we get Ron on the Man Cave? Are you with me, fellas?
I'm with you.
Oh, definitely.
Ron Feld, welcome to the Man Cave.
Thank you, Luke. Could I say something about what you just said?
Yes, please.
I turned 100 last December, not...
Oh, wow.
I thought you turned 100 on the 12th of the 12th.
25, yes.
Last year?
Last year.
You're 101 this year. God, it's all about research, isn't it, Adam?
Yes.
Did you get a letter from the Queen?
That'd be the king.
Can I take a minute or so and tell you who I got letters from, dignitaries?
Hells yeah.
The floor is yours, Ron.
I got a letter from Charles and Camilla. A beautiful one.
There you go.
I got a similar one from the Governor General.
Oh, who was the Governor?
I got one from the Prime Minister. I got one from the Minister for Veteran Affairs. Now let's turn to New South Wales.
Oh wow. State by state.
I got one from the Governor. I got one from the Premier. I got one from the Leader of the House of Representatives. I got one from the Federal Minister for Barton. I got one from the State Minister for Rockdale.
Oh, my God.
And I got one from the CEO of RSL New South Wales. 10 in all. I got no more than that.
Yeah, I'll put some claps.
Unbelievable, Ron. And you're 101 this year on the 12th of the 12th. I thought that's when you turn. Isn't that amazing? You turn 100 and you get a telegram or a message from the King. And if you turn 16, you get a text from Andrew. But anyway.
Oh, my God.
But Ron, you are an absolute superstar, and you are what the Anzac Aussie Spirit is all about.
Thank you.
You served in World War II. You'd be one of the last surviving World War II soldiers. You served as a private, and you are a very, very proud Australian. I had the honour of talking to you on 2GB this morning, and I am 100% sure that Bill and Adam have got a lot of questions for you. So, boys...
Ron, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for your service. You know, it was a long time ago, and it's a wonderful thing that you've made the ton, and you're still with us and talkative and all that. But tell me this, Ron. What was the good times about going away and serving your country overseas?
Well, there are a lot of good times. It all depends what you mean by good. If you're talking about real funny times or things that you remember, I remember the Japanese POW breakout at Cowra on the 5th of August 44, and we did a couple of sessions out looking for them. Then about September, I did a few weeks jungle training at Canungra, Queensland, and when I was at Canungra doing jungle training, I formed the impression quite correctly that I was going to a South Pacific location. I spent Christmas 1944 in a staging camp in Brisbane. Then early February, I arrived in a plantation called Jackanow Bay, which was south of Rabaul in New Britain. And it was there, I was there when the war finished. And then in September, I went into Rabaul and helped build up a new military base. The Australians were there early on. I believe there were about 50,000 Japanese there when the war finished. And whilst there, I had malaria and admitted to hospital. They thought I had dengue fever and thought I should die. And whilst there, I became an SP bookmaker.
Starting price bookmaker, illegal. We have the TAB now.
Oh, yes.
Total agency, but that was starting price bookies, and they were off course and they were illegal. Sorry.
And we used to get information from Radio Australia. And then when the war, I was there until June in 1946. I came back to Australia and met my wife, future wife, who I've been married to for 77 years. Wow. I served about 3 months at Army Headquarters Victoria Barracks, and I was discharged 21st of December 1946. So there were funny times and good times.
And Ron, Bill, I'll put it over to you, but I just want to mention this to you both. Not only is Ron 101 this December, but this Anzac Day, he is marching.
Oh, damn.
And he's not in a wheelchair. He is actually, Ron, tell the boys, you are actually leading your Anzac Day march. Tell us about it.
Yes, I've been patron at Ramsgate Rockdale RSL for about 8 years. And this year, as in previous years, I will be at the head of the march, which starts about 7 o'clock. We march for about, I guess, about a kilometre down to the Ramsgate RSL Memorial Club, where we have a service. And I was asked, would I say the ode on the podium to the several hundred people that were gathered there, and I said I would say the ode.
Okay, now you said the ode on when I was on radio this morning, and I want you to say the ode again towards the end of our conversation, because you do it and deliver it brilliantly. Sorry, Bill, over to you.
No, not a problem. Good day, Ron. Nice to meet you, mate. 2 points, Ron. You know, obviously, congratulations and thanks for your service and everything. The second point is my neighbour is the Canungra Army Barracks. Where you trained is where I live.
Oh, is that so? That's a beautiful spot.
It is. So my neighbours are the Canungra Army Barracks. They're the only neighbours I have. And I've got to say I love them, and they're great. I mean, you know, and the work you would have gone through back in the time, I commend you.
I've got a question.
Go for it.
My question is, and this, I don't know if this is a bit like of a rough question to ask. How do you get used? Did you often feel like you were going to die? I don't know how you get over the fear of death in such a crazy situation. And the thing is, you kind of need to get over that to perform, or do you just learn how to live with it?
No. I didn't
When you
fire
had Japanese shooting at you.
No, I didn't fire any bullets. They were in Rabaul and they couldn't get out. Now, our brigade was a little further down south, and I believe that our position was to be there and hold them if they tried to come south and go on to Australia. So there was no actual action. We were there in a holding capacity.
You're 2 years younger than my dad would be if he was still with us, God bless him. And I asked Dad, I said, Dad, do you reckon the dropping of those bombs on Japan were necessary? Were too necessary? He said, absolutely. He said a lot of innocent people died, but it saved more people, and the two were necessary because the Japanese didn't know the meaning of the word surrender. Now, that's what my father said. How do you feel about the two bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, at the time, I thought, well, that's great, but of course it has shortened the war, and it certainly meant that a lot of Allied people would not be killed in further conflicts. But when I reflect on it now, I think, well, I'm sad that it happened, but I really feel that it should have happened.
And as someone who has seen war firsthand, how do you feel about what's, the state of the world at the moment, with Iran and Israel and the US getting involved? Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I think it's damn terrible to think that we've got these conflicts in Ukraine, and we've got Israel, Lebanon, and Israel is basically against Iran and a couple of other countries, and now we've got USA temporarily sort of
there,
hardly invading Iran, but I applaud USA because I remember prior to 1976, the Shah of Persia ruled, and I asked I asked somebody what Shah meant, and they said king. He was a ruler, and it was very peaceful. But ever since then, it's been terrible. They've been killing people for saying, I don't like you. So I applaud for USA what they're doing now, but I hope it gets over very quickly.
Can I ask you this, Ron? Can you believe this guy's 101 in December, and he's going to march? He's going to lead the march on Anzac Day. This guy is just a hero, isn't he? Can I ask you this? The Katter Party in Queensland want it to be a criminal offence to burn the Australian flag. How do you feel about that?
I think it should have been there years and years and years ago. If people want to burn our Australian flag, if they can't live under it, they should go elsewhere.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's a thing. I personally think putting laws like that in is just going to stifle everything. It's going to turn everyone too woke. I understand what you're saying, Ron, and my father, I had a father and a stepfather that both served in the military, so I get what you're saying, but I don't know if locking people up is the answer.
No, look, I got to look at it another way too. Burning a symbol of something that we all live under and we love and we fought for and everything else. I mean, I just don't understand why people do it. Obviously, they do it because they're angry with the government, but the actual, I don't think that doing that towards the government does anything. It actually hurts the people more than it does the government. And it's the people that, love the flag more so than the fucking government, to be honest with you. I truly believe that. We're pretty staunch, and we love our culture, we love our society, we love the integration of people. We do, we really do. Okay, you have segments of people in the community that just don't conform or don't combine. They're the ones that, it's up to them, stay or go. But if you're going to stay, enjoy it. It's a land of, we have the best opportunity. And I don't care what anybody says. They all say, you know, America, the land of the free and all that. No, Australia is the ultimate land. I mean, it really is. If you live here, it is such a fucking privilege.
Absolutely.
Do you know what? If you live here or were born here, you've won the lottery.
Oh,
100%.
Haven't
absolutely.
you? What do you reckon?
Absolutely. So you got no right
What do you reckon, Ron?
you got no right to burn a flag. But then, on the other hand, you do have some Indigenous folk that say you don't have the right to eat our coat of arms. And we do.
That's true.
Ron?
Yes?
I want you to enjoy Anzac Day. Do you play tour?
Of course he does. He's an SP bookmaker.
Of course he does. What am I doing?
What a dumb question.
What am I doing, Adam? Adam, take over.
He'll be running the ring.
Can you cheat at two-up? Like, how do you play two-up?
Well, if you had marked coins, but everyone would get onto you.
So it is like a game of life.
It's just basic rules. Heads holds, so no one gets confused.
Ron?
Yes?
Ron, explain to Kelsey, who's 30, how do you play two-up?
Never played it.
In case she wants to go down to the RSL on Saturday. Ron, give us a lesson. How do we play two-up?
Well, you can have 2 coins, special coins, and you can have 3. Let's say you have 3. So you put them on what they call a kip. It's a little thin piece of timber, and the 3 coins are placed on it. And you put those on your finger, and you flip your finger up sometimes 5 feet in the air, and the coins spin and come down. Now, if you have 3 coins, you've got to have 2 of one kind to win or lose. Now, if there's 2 heads and you backed heads, you win. If there's 3 heads, you still backed heads, you win. If there were 2 tails and you backed tails, you'll lose. So it's heads and tails, and you've got to get the best of 3.
And the bloke tossing them is the spinner.
He's the.
Come in, spinner.
He's the spinner, and I think the guy running it is the keeper.
So is there standard rules about who holds the money? Because I'm sure after everyone's been on the tinnies, that say, no, I said I was heads or I said I was tails. So where I play, it's generally the rule is heads holds. So if you choose heads, you hold the cash, and then there's no argument. So is that a general rule across the board, or is it just different pubs or different razzles that have different rules?
Well, the keeper. I mean, well, if let's say there are 20 people around, you can bet side by side with somebody if you want to. So if you and I, Luke, were amongst the crowd, you could say to me, well, I'm backing heads, Ron. And I say, all right, I'll back tails, and that's it. But the spinner, you give the money to the keeper, and you give him, say, $5, and he keeps that. And somebody has to bet against that. So he says, all right, I've got $5 here. Is there a tailie there? Is there a tailie? And somebody says, well, I'll back the tails. And he gives the $5 to the keeper. Up goes the coins and down they come. And then usually you have to spin 3 times to get a nice little bonus. And if you had $5 with the keeper and you win, that becomes 10. Now, the keeper says, well, I've got $10 here. Have I got a $10 tailer? And somebody will say, I'll back tails. And then if they come down heads,
you're going to play.
And he says, okay, whoever gave him the $5 first gets what the keeper's got.
Ron, it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure to have you on the Man Cave today. I want you to have a fantastic Anzac Day leading your march at Ramsgate.
I will.
And will you please now, for us, deliver the ode?
Do you hear me plainly?
Absolutely.
Here I go. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Clap, 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 clap. Thank you.
Ron, lovely to have you on. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Luke, and others
Thank you,
there.
mate.
Thank
Good
you
afternoon,
very much.
Ronnie.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
What a cute.
How good was
Married
that,
for
folks?
70 plus years.
77 years. I reckon, Bill, you're going to, I reckon if you live to 100, you will be the one that can crack that. But
Yeah.
77 years.
I bet heads he can crack it.
Oh, man.
Who's going tails?
I'll go tails.
Ha, ha, ha. No, heads is mine.
Just for your information, New Britain, as I said, is near New Guinea. It's the largest island in the Bismarck archipelago, and it's part of the island's region of Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Fantastic.
And just for your information, Kelsey, the Governor General is the Honourable Ms. Sam Moyston.
Never heard of that name in my life.
Okay.
Never heard of that name in my life.
So I had to introduce you to Ron. After talking to him on 2GB this morning, I thought the boys would love that.
Fantastic.
Thoroughly enjoyed listening to him. I mean, somebody that's 101, I mean, the respect, I mean, just to make it to that, I mean, fucking hell, after everything he went through.
I know.
And not only that, he went through fucking war, and then he went through 75 years with a wife that he still with. I mean,
which was worse.
I know. Which was worse.
Got to give it
different time, different people, different values. Yeah, good on him.
But respect your elders, and I just wanted to hear his voice on the eve of Anzac Day. I thought it was pretty special.
Sure.
Yeah. Nice. Now, should we change the tune?
Change the tune, Kelsey. Segue here, please.
Change the tune.
Segue.
I don't know what a good segue is. Let's get into some headlines that I'll do one that caught my eye, and then Luke, if there's any that's caught your eye, you can tell us about that. But I saw this headline, and it says, well, because I think, we spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about, electrification, electric vehicles, electric scooters, and, a lot about the safety of these things, especially when it's, teenagers behind the handlebars. And one Florida woman, she learned this the hard way. So I'm going to share my screen with you because we're going to watch a video. And if you're listening to this on audio at the moment, switch to video so you can watch what we're looking at. So a Florida resident woke up to a clicking noise from her wheelchair and realized the danger after searching online for answers. Instead of ignoring the sounds, she immediately moved outdoors where it exploded, saving her house and family from catastrophe. So let's
go to the video.
Let's watch this video.
Jesus.
Is that real?
It is real. It's fully real.
That looks like it's just a couple of bungers underneath the electric wheelchair. A couple of 12-ball shooters.
Nah, but I did find it interesting how fast this woman ran back into the
After
house.
jumping out of her electric scooter.
Yes. Practice good charging health so this doesn't happen to you.
Good charging health.
Do you know what good charging health is?
It's a bit like when you're digging underground, know where you're digging before you dig.
Oh, yeah. I remember those signs.
Absolutely. Now, I also did have a funny story I wanted to bring to the boys. So what would you do? What would you do, right, for just a little bit of extra money? What lengths would you go to for a little bit of extra money? And I personally cannot tell if this is the stupidest thing I have ever seen or it was just a really smart idea that's like being very poorly executed. So 3 blokes have gotten themselves a 180-day jail sentence for dressing up in a bear costume, damaging their luxury vehicles, then filing an insurance claim. So home footage submitted to an insurance company shows the so-called bear entering and damaging a 2010 Rolls Royce. Obviously now they have been ordered to pay back the money. But I got to say, this bear costume is pretty believable. Look at that. I mean, they went to the effort. That looks almost like a taxidermy bear.
No way. I saw this, and I love the insurance assessor. It says this is quite obviously a human in a bear suit.
I know. Upon reviewing the footage, the biologist concluded it was clearly a human in a bear suit, and the claw scratches that this apparent bear made were so obvious. It was like 4 perfect scratches in a row, but they got it through. I think they won like £130,000 at the start, and then somebody was like, "Hold on a second, this doesn't seem right."
Yeah, I don't know. Humphrey wouldn't get away with it today. That would have
been cooked. That plan would have been cooked up after half a box of tinnies. Again, this is what we're going to do. This is a great idea.
Speaking of animals and kind of mascots, here's a story that's perplexing me that's making news today. Have you all seen the television ad for the Discovery Caravan Parks? And there's an AI mascot called Bruce the Border Collie.
Oh.
It's it kind of like a Pixar character. It's an AI-generated character. And Bruce the Border Collie, white and tan, sort of walks you through the park and shows you its features. And it's very, very cute. Your dog, Riley, actually barks at it. And it's not even a real dog.
That sounds about right.
Well, guess what? There's outrage.
Why?
There's absolute outrage because a group called the G'day Group have said that this AI-generated dog, you can see it now, maybe has replaced 40 jobs.
Oh, what?
How?
How?
G'day Group spokeswoman said the decision, which is understood to have made at least 40 workers redundant, was needed to address our rapid growth. The company stressed the Discovery Parks branded dog could not perform any work. When asked why, the answer was, it's a cartoon character. G'day Group has denied the sudden axing of a dozen Discovery Park staff. How does an AI dog in a Discovery Park ad replace 40 jobs? I'm just lost on this. Can someone help me?
Well, I guess like copywriters, the actual like performance, because when you try and use like a proper dog, like a real dog, you have to have like a trained dog. They cost a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to have a dog on set for a long time. They got to whip this up. They got to whip this up within a day.
Well, funny enough, I just spoke to a gentleman in the UK, and he's a voiceover, and he's lost his job. His wife has lost her job. The whole voiceover industry has been taken over by AI now. So, and it's going into the and funny enough, it is, and it's not funny, but it's going into the book world, you know, the authors and editors, writers, everything. It's just taking over all those type of industries.
Well, you know how I watch a lot of documentaries and news stories on YouTube, for example, and the AI narrative is taking over everywhere. All the voiceovers are now AI, and it's easy to pick because, for example, I was watching a Legends of League, Adam, and they were kept referring to Tommy Randadanicus.
See, that's where it falls down.
And it drove me mad. I had to turn it off.
I mean, in my industry, I sometimes encourage staff to use AI and Google Lens and stuff because the things that come across my desk is so varied. I've been in the game a long time, so I've got a pretty good knowledge base. But someone starting out in my business, you need... Sometimes it can get it just way wrong, and it's hard.
Oh yeah,
it's hard for people new to the game to think, well, that's actually not what this thing is. It's something totally different. So you've got to be really, really careful.
Yeah, it's funny Kelsey says a bubble because I remember many years ago when I was at 2GB and Trevor Long was just starting on his tech journey. When they released the first 3D printer, he was beside himself. He was wetting himself with excitement. And, of course, he had to race out and get one. He said, I've never used it. It was going to revolutionise the world, the 3D printer.
But it still might. Sometimes it takes a long time, right? Like when the tech bubble happened, when computers... The same thing happened when, like, computers started coming out, right? These were the best things that were ever going to happen. But in the first like decade of, people actually having computers around, like, and the very early ones, it actually caused more work for them because they were printing out, they were doing all of this analysis and all of this thing, which actually just, ended up with people spending way more time reading and trying to understand what the computer was spitting out at it. So, but then with enough time, it did correct itself when the technology got better.
I'd love to get feedback. Do you think AI will take jobs? And what do you make of Bruce, the Border Collie?
What do we make of Bruce the Ball?
Allegedly taking 40 jobs.
Now, quickly, Luke sent us an email the other day, and all I saw from it was police auctions.
Okay,
and so I went onto this page, right? I looked it up. I went onto this page thinking I was going to see like guns and machetes and stuff like that. And I went onto Allbid's auction page, the police auction page, and one of the first things I saw was like NARS concealer, makeup pack, and Pokemon cards. And I went, I think I've got the wrong idea about what police auctions are, because this is not what I thought that you could get on a police auction.
Well, what happened was an algorithm had come onto my Facebook, and it was from New South Wales Police. And it was an alert that they had a huge police auction coming up.
Oh, my God.
And so I read a bit more into it, and I thought, I'll get Brother Adam to explain the police auctions. Adam, it's all yours.
So these happen in every state. We obviously, down in Canberra, we do it for the AFP. And basically it's just either stuff that's been seized from being stolen, or it's been purchased via proceeds of crime. I've seen some weird and wonderful stuff. I've seen sledgehammers and lock-picking kits. And all this.
There was a bloody forklift on there before.
Right. But the most that comes across Allbid's
and a singular glass
is jewellery. We sell a lot of jewellery for the AFP, and we've sold jewellery that has been custom made with 1% Motorcycle Club's logos. And what we have to do with that is, because look, there's a couple of motorbikes, there's a pallet jack. There's something for everybody in these sales, Kelsey.
Police auctions.
But most of it's processed right. But I'll tell you this, and this has happened a couple of times. We had maybe 18 months ago, we had this, I think it was a 1932 Harley Davidson. And like, this thing was ridiculous. It had the suicide shift, so the gear shifts on the petrol tank. And the fella that bought it, he wasn't an old fella. He would have been in his mid-30s, early 30s maybe. I won't say he came across a bit dubious, but he came across a bit dubious. And I said to him, this thing's an impossible ride. You know, you've got to take your hand off the handlebars to change gears. Like it's a hand shift.
Like my old dragster.
And I said, have you ridden one before? And he sort of looked around and he said, it was mine. So the police have seized it off him, and then he's jerried onto it, and he's bought it back. And I think that happens with quite a bit of jewellery. But I mean, they're always exciting. There's all sorts of sales like this. There's lost in transit, which can be a really lucrative sale. If Australia Post lose something, gets chucked in a box, and then every now and then, like once every month or every 2 months, it goes up to auction, which I bought some wonderful things out of that, especially collectible sneakers and stuff like that. So all traditionally auction houses are just not about antiques and collectibles. There's many different tiers to what we do in one of these spaces.
Now, okay, can you get a bargain at a police auction? I'm thinking about, for example, cars that have been taken away from people. Tell us about that.
Well, it's all unreserved. You know, if Joe Bloggs comes down to me and says, I've got a Porsche for sale, we're more than happy to talk to him about an expected price. But with the police auctions, they have to clear it. They have to put the case to bed. It's got to be sold. So it's got to go.
So what if if I bid $1 on a car, and let's just pretend that like no one else places a bid, which would
it's
be
your car for $1.
Would I get it?
It's your
but there's no warranty.
It's your car for $1.18 because we've got to put our 18.5%.
But there's no warrant. But there's no warranty, isn't there?
But you know, our newsletter and our catalogue goes out to over 300,000 people. So if you buy a car for $1, you were very, very lucky.
1986. I had a surfboard that got stolen. I had it made by Brothers Nelson. The Nelson brothers made this board for me. All right, and I had my girlfriend's name, now wife, Lara, sprayed on the back of the board. Now, it got stolen a month after I got it. 1 month after I got it, it got stolen. And that was 1986, I believe. In 2016, I found it. at an auction. And I told the police that was my board.
So did you get it
they
back?
gave it back to me. I've still got it today.
See, this
Oh,
this
hell
is
yeah.
interesting. I had a vendor that was selling, what are they called? Vinyl pop heads. Luke, remember when I met you? Were at that? Yeah.
No,
You
educate me.
remember
What's
when
that?
I met you at that trade fair? And there was heaps of those little figures in white boxes with the big heads.
Bobblehead.
Like bobbleheads, but they're
bobblehead?
called vinyl pop heads. But anyway, this fellow was bringing me, 20 or 30 a week to sell. And then one day a gentleman came in and said, they're all mine. And I said, well, they're pretty generic. How do you prove it? And he said, well, you've got a Speedy Gonzales one there, right? And I said, yeah, there it is. It's a genuine Speedy Gonzales one. He said, there's 3 in the country, and here's the receipt for mine. And I said, it is what it is. So he had to go and make a police report. The police proved it, and the police seized a lot of them, and eventually got them back.
Oh my God, over pop heads.
Like, it was pretty collectible. Like I think the receipt for memory, he paid like $2,000 for it or something like that, but a really rare one.
I've got a question for Bill. I know that you've given a lot of, presents for like other people, that have been assigned to you, right?
Yep.
But have you ever received a present from like a client that you've worked with that is for you, in their estate? Has anyone ever given
As a private detective, or as,
or
as a
coffin confessor, either
confessor,
or, but because I don't know, I would think, they're trusting you with this, with all this stuff.
A gratuity.
Oh, I just wouldn't be surprised if they left you something like, here's my...
Yeah, are you allowed to be left in someone's will if you've looked after them, or is that inappropriate?
No, legally I'm allowed to. Ethically, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Morally, I don't do it.
Yeah, you're a prick.
And it's because I don't need the conflict or the bullshit from the family.
Yes, that's true.
I don't need the community saying, hey, you were just left a car, you kept that car, but did you provide the service that person really needed? I don't need the legalities.
Give us an example.
That would be hard to turn down.
Give us an example of what's the most amount of money.
So the year before last, a gentleman who couldn't, he wanted to take his shit with him. He really did. And we come up with this plan that I would jump into his grave, dig a hole, put his items in that hole, and then the coffin would go on top of the items, and then it'd all be buried in one.
Well,
like the Egyptians, like the pharaohs.
Anyway,
yeah, basically, yeah. So what I did is I organised all that, and I had to pay the grave digger to lower me down into the grave because he had a big backhoe load me down. I dug the hole, I put the items in there, and I did everything he said. Now, he offered me $200,000.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah.
Well, you've got to, because at the end of the day, what am I going to do is take $200,000 from basically a man that's family are now searching for his items, his cash and everything in his grave, and they want everything that was buried with him. You're
a better man than we would be.
Much better man than me, brother. You're a much better man than me.
I'd be like, go on, take me to court. Go on.
I dare. I can afford it now. Hey, listen, we've got to go. But how about, as we are launching today's Man Cave?
101st.
Oh, yeah, 101st. You missed out on our 100th episode. That was the other day. So this is 101, a bit like Ron. 101.
Oh.
For any of the returned servicemen and women who feel divided or anxious or triggered by Anzac Day and the BRS case, which is in the media, remember, Wounded Heroes is there, and they're there to help. And you take care of yourselves and enjoy Anzac Day. Thank you so much for listening to episode 101. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to you. Stay in touch. Leave us voice messages. You could win some merch.
And what's your thought of the day?
No, it's just something that popped into my head the other day.
Like a Maine wolf?
If Pinocchio had a cocaine habit, but lied about it, would that make it worse?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.